Chapter 2 Biological Beginnings. Section 1 The Evolutionary Perspective. The idea behind the evolutionary perspective of development is that some of our traits and behaviors today can be explained through the evolutionary advantage that they once gave humans. In the process of natural selection, individuals that are best adapted to their environment are more likely to survive and reproduce, which means those characteristics are passed down to the next generation. Over generations, organisms with the characteristics best suited for survival make up an increased percentage of the population. Evolutionary psychologists emphasize adaptation, reproduction, and survival of the fittest in shaping behavior, with fit meaning the ability to bear offspring that survive long enough to themselves bear offspring. For example, humans have a much longer childhood compared to other animals. It takes our brains longer to develop, so this longer childhood gives us time for our brains to develop and for us to have the experiences needed to become competent adults in a complex society. Now, just because something may have been an advantage hundreds of thousands of years ago doesn't necessarily mean that it's still adaptive today. For example, once upon a time, food was extremely scarce and hard to obtain. So humans developed a propensity to gorge on food when it was available and to crave high-calorie foods. However, today, when food is plentiful, this would be a trait that contributes to our current obesity epidemic. Since fitness is primarily geared towards reproductive advantage, this means that the benefits of evolutionary selection decrease with age. For example, if Alzheimer's disease was something that typically struck people in their early 20s instead of their 70s, then it's possible that natural selection would have weeded it out a long time ago. For older adults, there is no evolutionary pressure to stave off illness or infirmity. So longevity in late adulthood begins to rely more on culture. As adults weaken biologically, they need culture-based resources such as cognitive skills, literacy, medical technology, and social support. Evolutionary psychology has its critics. Common criticisms are that much of evolutionary psychology cannot be tested scientifically, and that it relies mainly on post hoc or after-the-fact explanations. Another criticism is that it is one-sided, viewing social behavior as strictly the project of evolved biology. An alternative is a bidirectional view, in which environmental and biological conditions influence each other. In this view, evolutionary pressures created changes in biological structures that allowed the use of tools, which enabled our ancestors to manipulate the environment, constructing new environmental conditions. In turn, environmental innovations produced new selection pressures that led to the evolution of specialized biological systems for consciousness, thought, and language. In other words, evolution has given our body structures and biological potentialities, but it does not dictate behavior. People have used their biological capacities to produce diverse cultures, aggressive and peaceful, egalitarian and autocratic. The big picture idea of natural selection leading to the development of human traits and behaviors is difficult to refute or test because evolution occurs on a time scale that does not lend itself to empirical study. Thus, studying specific genes in humans or other species and their links to traits and behaviors may be the best approach for testing ideas that came out of the evolutionary psychology perspective.